Level 1. The handshake. It starts with a call at 2:13 a.m. Not your phone, someone else's. A burner on the table in a back room above a bar on Mulberry Street. The room smells like espresso, bleach, and old smoke. Three men look at you without blinking. One of them slides the phone across the table. The screen lights up once, then goes black. Answer when it rings again. Nobody tells you what happens if you don't. The phone rings. You pick it up on the first vibration. A calm voice gives you an address in Queens, a time window of 20 minutes, and 6 words that matter more than your own name now. Don't be late, don't ask questions. That is how you enter. Not with an oath, not with a ceremony, with obedience. At level 1, you are not a gangster. You are proof of concept, a pair of hands, a face that means nothing. You carry envelopes, park cars, stand at doors, deliver food, pick up dry cleaning, and wait outside social clubs for hours without checking the time. Sometimes the envelope has $4,800 in it. Sometimes it has a flash drive. Sometimes it has nothing. And the errand is the test. The first rule becomes clear fast. Nobody explains the whole machine to the part that can break. So you learn by watching. Who gets greeted first? Who never reaches for the bill? Which men laugh too loudly because they need to be liked? And which men speak softly because they already are feared? You notice that respect moves through the room before money does. The older soldiers get their chairs before anyone else sits. The maid men never carry boxes. The boss never repeats himself. You start to understand the real currency here is not cash. It is reliability. If someone says, be outside the bakery at 6:40, you arrive at 6:15. If someone says, take the long route through Astoria, you take it, even if it adds 22 minutes and 2 tolls. If someone says you never saw him, then you never saw him, even if his blood is on your cuff and his watch is still ticking on the pavement. You tell yourself it is temporary, just until you make money, just until you get close enough to matter, just until you step inside the warm circle where people stop talking around you and start talking to you. That circle stays 3 feet away, no matter how near you stand. At level 1, you still belong to the outside world. Your mother still asks where you work. Your friends still text you about soccer, girls, cheap flights, stupid plans. You answer less. You cancel more. You become difficult to reach and easy to explain away. Busy, tired, working nights. The truth is simpler. You are being measured. You learn that every favor creates a debt, and every debt becomes a leash. A man named Carlo gives you $300 after you drive his cousin to a warehouse in Red Hook and wait in the car for 90 minutes. He pats your cheek like you are family. A week later, he calls and says he needs one more thing. Then another, then another. By the end of the month, you stop thinking in terms of choice. You think in terms of timing. How fast do you move? How long do you keep your eyes down? When do you speak? When do you disappear? You start to like being useful. That is the dangerous part, because being useful gets you invited back. Level 2, the useful hand. Now they trust you with things that matter enough to hurt if you lose them. Cash pickups, small ones at first. $8,200 from a gambling room in Bensonhurst. $13,600 from a machine repair business that fixes almost nothing and launders almost everything. You count money in the back seat of a black S-Class while rain taps the windows and a man in a camel coat watches traffic like every red light belongs to him. Nobody says the word mafia. Nobody needs to. At level 2, the organization begins to show itself in layers. Associates answer to soldiers. Soldiers answer to captains. Captains answer to the underboss and consigliere. And above them all sits the boss, who seems less like a man and more like the weather. You do not see him often, but every room shifts when his name enters it. You become useful because you know how to stay calm. You drive through a police checkpoint in Newark with $26,000 sealed inside a tire compartment and keep your heartbeat steady enough to answer a question about where you are headed. You smile, you shrug, you say your aunt needs help with a freezer. The officer waves you through. Afterward, the soldier beside you says nothing for 12 blocks. Then he nods once. That nod means more than the money you begin to earn, which is different from being paid. Paid means someone gives you a number. Earning means you bring in something the machine wants. You run bets from a sports book, collect late payments from shop owners, and make sure a nightclub on West 28th remembers who keeps its liquor trucks arriving on time. Sometimes all you do is stand in the doorway with your coat open and your face blank while someone decides to become cooperative. You still tell yourself you're not doing real harm. You are just carrying messages, applying pressure, keeping order, helping business run smoothly. The rationalizations come dressed like adult decisions. You like that. The men above you notice. They start letting you stay in the room longer. Not during the important talk, during the talk before it. The fragments, enough to understand that construction contracts are fixed before the bids open. Enough to hear that a councilman in Staten Island needs help with a problem involving photos and a mistress. Enough to know that 1 envelope buys silence, 2 envelopes buy influence, and 3 envelopes buy memory loss. You watch how the older men operate, never angry in public, never desperate on the phone, never greedy in front of subordinates. Everything is posture. Everything is a signal. You change the way you dress. Dark coats, clean shoes, no logos, no bright watches, nothing that attracts police or envy. You stop posting pictures. You stop carrying old friends into new rooms. You stop saying too much to women you meet after midnight. Silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling expensive. At home, the mirror still knows your first face. Outside, fewer people do. Level 3, the collector. The money has a smell you recognize on contact. Cigarettes, kitchen grease, cheap perfume, printer ink, damp cardboard. The scent changes by neighborhood, but the feeling stays the same. Somebody owes. You arrive. At level 3, you become part of the bloodstream. Not glamorous, essential. You collect from bars, card rooms, body shops, import companies, street vendors, and a chain of cash-only pizza places that somehow report identical weekly numbers every month. Some debts are routine, some are late. Late debts teach the organization who you are. You knock once, you're always polite first. That is another rule. Violence is expensive. Fear is cheaper when it walks in wearing a tie. You sit across from a man named Nico who owes $42,000 from football bets he cannot cover. He has a wife upstairs and a son doing homework in the next room. He keeps saying he just needs another week. You look around his kitchen and notice the new refrigerator, the gold chain, the sealed box with a PlayStation logo on it. You realize debt is rarely about bad luck. It is about hope with numbers attached. You leave without touching him. On the way out, you take the refrigerator door handles off with a screwdriver from your coat pocket and hand them to him like a gift. Tomorrow, you say. He pays by noon. This is how the system changes you. Not in one dramatic step, in 100 tiny adjustments to what feels normal. You no longer ask whether something is cruel. You ask whether it is effective. You no longer think of fear as an emotion. You think of it as infrastructure. Your name begins to move ahead of you. Shop owners stand when you enter. A bookie in Harlem pays before you sit down. A promoter at a strip club starts saying sir, even though you're younger than he is. Reputation arrives quietly, then all at once. And with reputation comes scrutiny. Temptation is everywhere. So is surveillance. You learn that trust inside the empire is not trust the way normal people mean it. It is controlled access, measured exposure. The system does not love you. It uses you successfully. Still, you begin to crave advancement because once you taste status, ordinary life feels too small. A normal job looks like humiliation. A normal paycheck looks like a joke. Waiting in line anywhere feels offensive. That is when the empire really owns you, not when you fear leaving, when you cannot stand the thought of becoming average again. Level 4, the enforcer. The first time they send you to make an example, it is over a union vote. A foreman in Long Island stops cooperating. He starts talking about auditors, clean books, honest bids, bad instincts. He's not important enough to kill and too visible to buy. So they send you and 2 others to correct his understanding. You catch him outside a diner at 5:52 a.m., Snow hardens along the curb. The coffee in his hand steams in the dark. You pin him against his truck, speak close enough for him to smell mint on your breath, and tell him exactly what school bus his daughter takes on Tuesdays. You never touch the girl. You never need to. He changes his vote before lunch. At level 4, you become a specialist in consequences. Your job is not to create chaos. It is to deliver precision. A broken storefront window at 3:14 a.m. A stolen ledger returned with one page missing. A debt doubled. A man embarrassed in front of people who matter. Sometimes a wrist gets fractured. Sometimes a car burns. Sometimes all it takes is a photograph placed on the right dashboard. The point is never rage. The point is memory. Everyone must remember what happens when the line is crossed. Never create unnecessary widows, headlines, or revenge cycles. Never mistake proximity to violence for power. The men who scream and wave guns are rarely important. The important men barely raise their voice. You begin carrying 2 phones, one legal, one disposable. You rotate license plates. You park facing exits. You memorize camera locations outside restaurants and federal buildings. Your day starts at noon and often ends after sunrise. You eat in parked cars more than at tables. You sleep lightly and dream in logistics. The psychological cost arrives in private moments. You sit in a church for a funeral and realize you scan exits before you look at the coffin. You meet a woman who likes your reserve, but halfway through dinner, you stop listening because the man at the bar checks his phone twice without unlocking it, and that means he's waiting for a signal. You call your sister less because she keeps asking why you sound so far away. You do not sound far away. You are far away, not geographic, morally. Still, the rewards get larger. You move from envelopes to percentages, a piece of a sports book, a slice of a trucking route, cash. Every Friday, stacked in bands of $10,000. Tailored suits, access to rooms that used to close when you approached. Men who used to ignore you now ask your opinion and wait for the answer. You feel powerful. That feeling comes with a hidden clause. The more fear you control, the less freedom you keep. Level 5. The earner. Money changes your posture before it changes your address. At level 5, you stop being muscle with manners and start becoming revenue. That matters more than anything. Enforcers are useful. Earners are protected. You oversee 3 gambling rooms, a sanitation subcontractor, and a construction supply company that invoices for materials that never arrive. Before lunch, you move $60,000 through 2 shell companies registered in Delaware. By dinner, you resolve a dispute between a nightclub owner and a supplier who both owe favors to different captains. You no longer wait for instructions on small problems. You solve them and send up clean numbers. That is what respect looks like here. Not applause, dependable profit. You have guys under you now, young men with hungry eyes and bad patience. You see your old self in them and dislike it immediately. They ask questions with their shoulders. They want to prove courage. They think power lives in risk. You teach them the truth. Power lives in restraints. Anybody can start a fire. Real authority decides which building burns and which one gets insured first. You begin attending dinners where strategy replaces threats, labor contracts, political donations. Which prosecutor is ambitious? Which police captain is drowning in alimony and ready to be useful? Which real estate parcels matter before the rezoning announcement becomes public? The empire feels less like a street operation now and more like a hidden boardroom stitched into the city's bones. The illusion of control becomes intoxicating. A restaurant stays open because you say it does. A permit clears because someone owes your captain. A debt disappears because the debtor starts working for you instead. You tell yourself, this is cleaner than violence, smarter, more civilized. Then one of your guys gets sloppy. He skims from a poker room in Yonkers. Not much. $3,700 over 6 weeks. Enough to test whether anyone notices. You notice on day 12 and say nothing until you can see whether he corrects himself. He does not, so you bring him to a garage in East New York and make him explain the missing money while the engine ticks on a black Escalade nearby. He cries before you even raise your voice, says rent is high, says says his mother is sick, says he meant to fix it. You believe him. You still cannot save him from the lesson. The organization does not collapse because of one theft. It collapses when theft goes unpunished. You strip him of work, of access, of your protection. Others handle the rest. You never ask how far they go. By the next week, his number no longer connects. Nobody mentions him again. That silence disturbs you for exactly 2 nights. Then the books come in strong, and the feeling passes. This is the most dangerous transformation of all. Not cruelty, efficiency. You stop needing to hate anyone to ruin them. Level 6, the captain. When they give you a crew, nobody congratulates you. A captain does not get celebrated. He gets burdened. 10 men answer to you directly, more indirectly. Each one carries risk, disguised as loyalty. One drinks too much. One talks too much. One is loyal to you, but his brother is loyal to someone else. Every weakness in your crew becomes a future headline if you do not manage it early. You now kick money upward every week. The number is not symbolic. It is exact. Miss it once, and excuses sound like disrespect. Miss it twice, and you become a problem to solve. So you build buffers, hidden reserves, backup earners, redundant routes. You keep cash in 4 locations. A florist shop in Queens, a church basement safe, a condo registered to an ex-girlfriend, and a vacuum-sealed package beneath concrete in a storage unit under another man's name. This level teaches you the cruel mathematics of command. Everyone below you wants something. Everyone above you expects everything. A soldier gets arrested with a wire rumor attached to his name. You have 12 hours to decide whether to stand by him, test him, or cut him loose. A nightclub you protect becomes the site of a public shooting carried out by men from another family. The boss wants calm. Your crew wants retaliation. The newspapers want blood. The detectives want mistakes. You give none of them what they want immediately. That is leadership here. Delayed reaction, controlled temperature, never letting the room see panic, even when panic would be the honest response. You spend more time on the phone than on the street now. Burner calls, routed calls, 3-minute windows. You talk with union delegates, brokers, bookmakers, lawyers, cousins, and ghosts. From 20-year alliances that nobody writes down, you begin to understand that the empire does not run on violence alone. It runs on administration, records nobody keeps, promises nobody signs, threats nobody repeats. At home, your apartment gets larger and quieter. Security cameras cover the lobby and elevator. The windows are bullet-resistant. The wine is expensive. The sleep is terrible. You keep a pistol in a biometric safe beside the bed and another inside a hollowed law book in the office. Not because you expect an attack every night, because you know exactly how many people benefit if one happens. You see your family less, not for safety alone, because ordinary conversation feels impossible. Someone asks how work is going, and the question becomes absurd. Someone asks whether you are happy, and you almost laugh. Happiness is not a serious category anymore. Stability is, exposure is, leverage is. At level 6, you finally have authority, and almost none of your life belongs to you. Level 7, the broker, Taubaya. You rarely raise your voice. Men lean in. Anyway, you stop solving street problems and start arranging outcomes. A judge's nephew needs a gambling debt to disappear. A state senator needs opposition research buried before a primary. A rival family wants a truce after months of pressure on docks, clubs, and card rooms. You sit in private rooms with polished tables and no windows. Steak houses after closing. Country clubs on Mondays. A townhouse library with books nobody reads. Conversations happen in layers. On the surface, everyone is discussing contracts, shipping delays, labor peace, city permits. Underneath, they are negotiating survival. You know where the pressure points are. Who cheats on his wife? Who owes tax money? Who has a son with a drug habit and a daughter applying to Stanford? Who needs cash? Who needs silence? Who needs a man gone from a certain district for 6 months? Information becomes cleaner than blood and twice as powerful. You maintain files in your head and nowhere else. Dates, names, mistakes, preferences. You know that a port official in Newark folds at $15,000. but feels insulted if you offer it directly. He wants a consulting contract for his brother-in-law. You know that a real estate developer in Manhattan talks like he is untouchable, but panics if labor strikes delay his financing by even 9 days. You know which captains can be trusted with bad news and which ones become dangerous if their ego is bruised. This level brings proximity to the top. The boss takes your calls. The underboss asks for your read before meetings. Even your enemies speak to you carefully, because now you can damage them without ever appearing near the scene. But strategic power has its own corrosion. Nothing feels human anymore. Every interaction becomes a map of leverage. You no longer meet a person and notice warmth, humor, sadness, or fear first. You notice utility, exposure, value, threat. You begin to miss the simpler brutality of earlier levels, because at least then, the line between ally and enemy looked clear. Now, every ally is temporary. Every piece is rented. Every smile carries a clause. There is a young soldier in your orbit now, 22, disciplined, sharp, still capable of loyalty without calculation. He reminds you of how the system feels before it finishes rewriting a person. He stands straighter when you enter. He watches, learns, obeys. Sometimes you catch yourself wanting to warn him. You never do, because warning him changes nothing. Ambition has its own gravity. So does hunger. So did you. Level 8. The Architect. The city goes quiet at 4:47 a.m. Not silent. Quiet enough to hear the refrigeration units behind the fish market, the far siren on the bridge. The hum of traffic before daylight turns it into something louder and less honest. You stand alone in the penthouse office above a building owned through 5 companies and 3 dead signatures. The skyline glows cold against the glass. By now, nobody tells you no directly. That is how you know the prison is complete. At level 8, you no longer run errands, collections, punishments, or crews. You run gravity. Men move because they anticipate your preferences before you speak them. Money arrives through channels so layered, even federal agents need flowcharts. Construction, waste management, entertainment, logistics, vending, private security, import licenses, debt purchases, campaign contributions. Every legal stream shadows an illegal one, and every illegal stream borrows the respectability from a legal cousin. You do less, and more happens. That is real power, and it is colder than you expect. You eat alone often, not because you lack company, because company becomes risk. Every dinner is a listening post. Every lover is a possible weakness. Every old friend becomes either a nostalgic dead weight or an unsecured liability. Even loyalty looks different from the top. Nobody can love you cleanly once your favor changes their life. You know too much about everyone around you. That knowledge poisons intimacy. The underboss brings problems, not companionship. The consigliere brings options, not comfort. Captains bring tribute and requests. Politicians bring deniability. Lawyers bring delay. Doctors bring discretion. Priests bring ritual. Nobody brings truth unless it is useful. You sometimes stand at the window and try to remember what wanting used to feel like when it was still simple. Money, respect, a better suit, a seat at the table. You have all of it now in industrial quantity, and yet freedom shrinks with each victory. You cannot walk into a random cafe alone. You cannot trust spontaneous laughter in crowded rooms. You cannot call your mother from your real phone. You cannot disappear because too many men become nervous if your location turns uncertain for more than 17 minutes. You have built a kingdom whose walls are made of obligation. The final cost is not fear, it is distance. You authorize decisions with a nod now. A contract dies, a witness moves, a company gets sold, a captain retires early and permanently. You no longer witness the consequences directly. They return to you as cleaner reports, shorter meetings, revised numbers. That should make it easier. It does not. Because at this height, nobody lies to you about what you are anymore. You are not the toughest man in the room, not the bravest, not even the most ruthless. You are the system's memory. You keep track of every favor, every insult, every debt, every burial, every promise made in whispers over veal and red wine and fear. You preserve order by deciding which truths live and which ones get folded into concrete. Some nights, the city below looks almost innocent from this high up. Taxi lights, steam from street grates, neon reflected in puddles. People heading home with groceries, with takeout, with flowers, with lives untouched by the machine that quietly taxes their blocks, bends their contracts, fixes their permits, and arranges their misfortunes. They think power looks loud. They are wrong. Real power becomes quieter the closer it gets to absolute. Your phone vibrates once on the desk, a message from downstairs. A kid waits in the back room. Young, reliable, hungry, a good face. He runs errands well, keeps his mouth shut, learns fast. The captain bringing him in says he might be something. You look at the city for another moment before you answer. Then you type 2 words. Send him up. A few floors below, a new recruit sits too straight in a leather chair and tries not to stare at the paintings, the guards, the silence, the polished wood, the men who never fidget. He thinks this is the beginning of freedom. He thinks proximity to power means control. He thinks the rules are simple if he just listens hard enough. He does not understand what the system takes in exchange. You do. Because once, at 2:13 a.m., a phone rings in a room above a bar, and you pick it up, and after that, every level feels like ascent until you finally reach the top and realize the empire never lifts you. It closes around you.